There is a decision you are carrying right now. You may not be thinking about it every minute, but it is there. Maybe it is something you have been avoiding for months. Maybe it is something you already decided and you still are not sure you got it right. Maybe it is something coming toward you that you know you will have to face soon, and the thought of it alone is enough to make your chest tighten. That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is the weight of a life that actually matters. Men who have built something real, men who have responsibilities and people depending on them, men who understand that some decisions cannot be undone, those men feel that weight. And they should. The problem is not the weight. The problem is what most men do with it. Most men make their most important decisions from the wrong place. Not because they are unintelligent, not because they do not care, but because no one ever taught them the difference between deciding and reacting, between choosing and escaping, between a decision made from clarity and a decision made from pressure. The Stoics understood this distinction 2,000 years ago, and what they built around it is not a motivational framework. It is not a set of feel-good principles. It is a practical method for thinking clearly when the stakes are highest and the pressure is greatest. In the next 35 minutes, I am going to walk you through 5 Stoic principles for making decisions you will never regret. Not decisions that always turn out perfectly because no method can guarantee outcomes, but decisions you can stand behind. Decisions made from the best version of yourself, not from fear, ego, or the pressure of what other people expect from you. Before we go further, I need to tell you something important. Each of these 5 principles builds directly on the one before it. If you skip ahead, you will have the information, but you will be missing the foundation that makes it work. Give this your full attention. What you build here, you keep for the rest of your life. Think about the last truly difficult decision you faced. Not what to have for dinner. Not which route to take to work. A real decision. One where something important was at stake and where choosing wrong had consequences you could not easily undo. How did you make it? Did you sit with it clearly and work through it step by step? Or did you avoid it until the pressure of avoiding it became greater than the pressure of deciding? Did you ask everyone around you what they thought until their voices drowned out your own? Did you make the decision quickly just to stop feeling the discomfort of not having decided? Most men, if they are honest, recognize themselves in at least one of those patterns. And the reason those patterns exist is not a character flaw. It is something much more specific. It is that under pressure, the mind does not default to its clearest thinking. It defaults to its fastest thinking. And fast thinking under pressure is almost never the same as good thinking. A man facing a career decision that could change the next 10 years of his life does not need speed. He needs clarity. A man deciding whether to walk away from something he has invested years. Building does not need the opinions of everyone around him. He needs a framework that separates what is actually true from what he is afraid of. A man standing at a crossroads, knowing that both paths cost him something, does not need reassurance. He needs a method. Here is what makes this harder for men at a certain stage of life. When you are younger, decisions feel more reversible. You try something, it does not work, you try something else. But when you have built a career, a family, a reputation, a financial situation, suddenly the decisions carry more weight because the consequences reach further. A wrong move does not just affect you. It affects people you love and things you have spent decades creating. That weight does not make you weaker. It makes the quality of your decisions more important than it has ever been. And that is exactly why the Stoic method matters more at this stage than at any other point in your life. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius did not write that from a place of comfort. He wrote it while managing some of the most consequential decisions a man can face. And what he understood is the same thing that every principle in this video is built on. The quality of your decisions is determined entirely by the quality of your thinking. And the quality of your thinking is something you can train. Here is what I have not told you yet. And this is the part that changes how you approach every difficult decision from this point forward. The Stoics did not begin the decision-making process by looking at the options in front of them. They began by doing something that most modern men never do, and that most decision-making frameworks completely ignore. I am going to show you exactly what that is right now. Principle number 1. Separate what you control from what you do not. Before you evaluate any option, this sounds simple, it is not. Most men, when facing a difficult decision, begin by evaluating outcomes. If I choose this, what happens? If I choose that, what do I lose? And that process is not wrong, but it is incomplete, because it places equal weight on things you can actually influence and things that are entirely outside your hands. And when those two categories are mixed together, the mind cannot think clearly about either one. The Stoic teacher, whose ideas have survived over 2,000 years of human history, taught one principle above all others. There are things within our control and things that are not. Within our control are our own judgments, our intentions, and our actions. Outside our control are outcomes, other people's responses, circumstances, and everything that happens after we have acted. When you are facing a difficult decision and you feel paralyzed, it is almost always because you are trying to control something that is not yours to control. You are not asking what is the right thing to do. You are asking, how do I guarantee this turns out the way I need it to? And that question has no answer because outcomes cannot be guaranteed. That is not pessimism. That is simply how reality works. The practical exercise for this principle is straightforward. Take the decision you are currently facing and draw a line down the center of a page. On the left side, write everything about this situation that is within your direct control. Your actions, your preparation, your honesty, your commitment. On the right side, write everything that is not. Other people's reactions, market conditions, timing, luck, what others decide to do. Then close the right side, not because those things do not matter, but because no amount of thinking about them changes them. Every minute you spend trying to control what is on the right side of that line is a minute taken from the quality of your thinking about what is on the left. Before we move to principle number 2, I want you to do one thing. Write in the comments right now the one word that describes the decision you are currently facing. One word. That is your commitment to the rest of this process. Principle number 2. Test the decision against time, not against emotion. One of the most reliable signs that a decision is being made from the wrong place is urgency that has no real source. You feel like you need to decide now. You feel like if you wait, the opportunity disappears, the situation gets worse, or people will think less of you for not having an answer yet. That feeling of urgency is almost never about the decision itself. It is almost always about the discomfort of uncertainty. Seneca, who spent decades advising some of the most powerful men of his time, wrote something that has stayed with me since the first time I read it. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of the urgency you feel around a difficult decision is not coming from the decision. It is coming from your imagination of what happens if you do not decide. And your imagination under pressure is not a reliable narrator. The Stoic method for testing a decision against time works like this. Ask yourself 3 questions in sequence. First, if I make this decision today and look back on it in 10 years, will the urgency I feel right now seem justified, or will it seem like pressure I put on myself unnecessarily? Second, if I wait 30 days before deciding, what realistically changes? Not what might change in your imagination, but what actually and concretely changes. Third, if I had made this decision 5 years ago with the same information I have now, would I consider it a good decision or a rushed one? These questions do not slow you down for the sake of avoiding action. They slow you down for the sake of separating real urgency from manufactured urgency. And the difference between those two things is often the difference between a decision you stand behind and a decision you spend years second-guessing. Here is what Principle 2 reveals that most men find uncomfortable. The majority of decisions that feel urgent are not. The genuinely urgent decisions, the ones where delay creates real and irreversible harm, are far rarer than the anxious mind suggests. When you apply this test honestly, you will often find that what felt like a deadline was actually a pressure you created yourself. And that realization alone changes the quality of everything that follows. Principle number 3 is the one that most men at this stage of life find the hardest. Not because it is complicated, because it requires a level of honesty with yourself that is genuinely uncomfortable. And it is also the principle that separates the men who make decisions they regret from the men who do not. Stay with me. Principle number 3. Identify whose voice is actually making the decision. When you are facing a significant choice, there are multiple voices involved. There is the voice of what you actually want and believe is right. There is the voice of what you think you should want based on what success is supposed to look like. There is the voice of the people whose opinions matter to you, your family, your colleagues, your peers. And there is the voice of who you were 10 or 20 years ago, still operating inside you with values and fears that may no longer reflect who you have become. Most men, when they believe they are making a decision, are actually running a negotiation between these voices. And because they have never separated them, they cannot tell which one is actually driving the outcome. Carl Jung spent his life studying what happens when the unconscious parts of a man's psychology drive his choices without his awareness. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This applies directly to decision-making. When a man makes a choice that looks rational on the surface but leaves him feeling hollow afterward, it is almost always because the voice that made the decision was not his own. It was the voice of an expectation he absorbed so early he forgot it was not his. The expectation that a man at his level should keep climbing regardless of the cost. The expectation that walking away from something is the same as failing. The expectation that admitting uncertainty is a sign of weakness. The practical exercise for Principle 3 is the most important one in this entire method. Before making any significant decision, sit alone without your phone and without anyone else present, and write down the answer to this question. If I remove every consideration of what other people will think of this choice, and every consideration of what I am supposed to want at this stage of my life, what do I actually believe is the right thing to do? That answer will not always be comfortable. Sometimes it will tell you something you have been avoiding. But it is the only answer that leads to a decision you will not regret, because regret almost never comes from choosing what you truly believed was right. It comes from choosing what someone else's version of you was supposed to choose. Principle number 4 is where everything we have covered so far becomes an action, and it includes a specific tool that Marcus Aurelius used every single morning of his life as emperor. A tool that is simple enough to use today and powerful enough to change the outcome of every major decision you will ever face. Principle number 4. Prepare for the outcome before you choose, not after. Every man has made a decision, committed to it, and then been blindsided by a consequence he did not see coming. Not because the consequence was unforeseeable, but because he never looked for it. The mind, under the pressure of a difficult choice, naturally gravitates toward the outcome it wants. It focuses on the version of the future where the decision works out. And in doing so, it leaves itself completely unprepared for the version where it does not. Marcus Aurelius practiced something every morning that protected him from this blindness. Before each day began, before the demands of ruling an empire reached him, he would sit and deliberately think through what could go wrong. Not to become pessimistic, not to talk himself out of action, but to prepare his response in advance so that when difficulty arrived, it did not find him unprepared. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. Applied to decision-making, this practice works as follows. Before you commit to any significant choice, take the option you are leaning toward and deliberately construct the worst realistic outcome. Not the catastrophic imagination of the anxious mind, but the honest, probable downside. Then ask yourself one question. If this outcome occurs, can I live with it and recover from it? If the answer is yes, you have just removed the primary source of decision paralysis, which is the unexamined fear of what happens if things go wrong. You have looked at it directly, you have assessed it honestly, and you have determined that it is survivable. That knowledge does not make the decision easier in the emotional sense, but it makes it clearer. And clarity is what you need, not comfort. If the answer is no, if the realistic downside is genuinely something you cannot recover from, then that is important information. Not a reason to avoid all risk, but a reason to examine whether this particular decision, at this particular time with these particular stakes, is the right one for where you are right now. The man who has done this work is not the man who never faces hard outcomes. He is the man who faces them without being destroyed by the surprise of them. And that composure, built before the decision rather than after, is what allows him to act from strength rather than from the hope that nothing goes wrong. Principle number 5 is the final one, and it is the one that ties everything together. It is also the one that most decision-making frameworks leave out entirely, because it requires something most frameworks are not willing to ask of you. It requires you to decide not just what to do, but who you are going to be while you do it. Principle number 5. Measure the decision by the quality of the action, not the certainty of the outcome. This is the deepest principle in the Stoic approach to decision-making, and it is the one that finally releases you from the trap that most men spend their entire lives inside. The trap is this. We believe that a good decision is one that produces a good outcome, and therefore we cannot know if a decision was good until we see what happens. That belief makes every significant choice feel like a gamble, and it means that our sense of having decided well is always hostage to circumstances we do not control. The Stoics rejected this completely. For Marcus Aurelius, for Seneca, for the Stoic teacher, a decision was not measured by its outcome. It was measured by something else entirely. It was measured by whether the person making it acted in accordance with their deepest values, with full honesty, with genuine care for the people affected, and with the clearest thinking they were capable of at the time. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. When you measure a decision by the quality of the action rather than the certainty of the outcome, everything changes. You are no longer trying to predict the future. You are no longer trying to guarantee results that are not yours to guarantee. You are asking one question and one question only. Am I making this choice from the best version of myself, with the clearest thinking I have, in a way I can honestly defend regardless of how it turns out? If the answer is yes, you have made a good decision. Whatever follows is not a reflection of the quality of your judgment. It is a reflection of the circumstances of the world, which have always been and will always be partly outside your hands. This is not a way of escaping responsibility for outcomes. It is a way of taking responsibility for the only thing you ever actually owned: your thinking, your intentions, and your actions. The rest was never yours to control. Here is the practice that brings all 5 principles together. The next time you are facing a significant decision, work through these 5 questions in order. First, what in this situation is actually within my control and what is not? Second, is the urgency I feel real, or am I reacting to the discomfort of uncertainty? Third, whose voice is actually making this decision and is it mine? Fourth, what is the realistic downside and can I live with it? Fifth, am I making this choice from my clearest thinking and my deepest values? Those 5 questions will not make the decision for you. Nothing should. But they will ensure that when you make it as the man you have worked to become, not as the man circumstances are pressuring you to be. And that is the only kind of decision you will never regret. Tomorrow morning, before anything else reaches you, take the decision you are currently carrying and work through those 5 questions. Write the answers down. Give it 20 minutes of honest attention. That practice, repeated over time, is what separates the man who is controlled by his circumstances from the man who decides in spite of them. If this is the kind of thinking you want to keep building, this channel publishes 1 video every week. Every video goes deeper than the last. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.